Okay, here's a special little extra bonus. I am going to open this up and we're going to see what's inside. I'm curious how the circuitry is packaged inside something this tiny. There might be a screw underneath this label right here. So I'm going to use a heat gun to heat up the label. Okay, now it's hot. I'm going to pick this label. There is a screw down in that hole there. If you're curious on what my verdict on this product or power station is, go check out the full-length video on this. I checked the usable capacity on the AC output, the inverter. I load tested DC outputs, AC outputs, checked the surge rating for the AC inverter, checked the max charge rate, checked how long it takes to charge. I looked at the size and weight. I scanned the pure sine wave with a handheld scope. So all the performance numbers and data are in the review video. This is the teardown. Have a quick look inside to see the layout and packaging. I'm curious to see if the cells inside are pouch style cells, a prismatic cell, or maybe it is a 18650 style cylindrical cell. I am of course seeing it for the first time as well. This was 52 cents per watt hour after discounts. I paid 136 before tax for this thing. Get a screwdriver. Yes. Oh, it's still on actually. Oh, something happened. Something cracked. Break something. Ta-da! Whoa. No space left empty. Wow. I mean, the layout of this thing, you know, it is just completely full. There's no other way you would be able to get any more capacity density or minimize the use of space as much as possible. There are 6 rows on each side, and there's another layer below this one. So 6, 6, and then 6 and 6 underneath for a total of 24 cells. They do look like 18650s. 18650, there's a number, CMINR, 3000 milliamp hour each. There's a QR code here. The 2 metal carry loops, these attach directly to a screw on the other side of the plastic plate. So I thought there was going to be like some kind of steel frame that it attaches directly onto, but it is not. Everything is covered. There is no space that is not used. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 some sort of IGBT MOSFETs. Here is the, on this side, I haven't showed you on this side, yeah. So there's the, what I think is the BMS board. It is coated. There is a plastic clear coat on there. Just helps with minimize any sort of moisture and corrosion protection. Doesn't make it waterproof, but it could make it more moisture resistant. These here are another set of, I'm guessing these are maybe MOSFETs or PWM drivers. This is a pure sine wave inverter. I did check it and scan it with a handheld scope. The sine wave is pretty darn good. Here's that little transformer. I talked a little bit about thermals as far as how hot it gets if you're running the AC output inverter. I said the underside around the area where the sticker is, that gets the hottest. Well, that is actually the transformer and this big cap and the big inductor on the opposite side of that board. So that hotspot was coming from transformer, capacitor, and this inductor right here. That was generating a large portion of the heat when I was doing the battery capacity test. The 2 big lead wires right here, these are a Anderson connector, so that's good to see. It is silicone insulation. That's good. There's lots of elastic, some kind of like rubberized sealing compound. Stop it from component from getting loose or whatnot. These are, I think I didn't mention it already, but these are a cobalt-based chemistry. And for this given amount of space, if this were to be lithium iron phosphate in a single prismatic cell, I don't know how much energy capacity you can get out of that to fit in here. It's well made overall. It's very well made. It passed all the performance testing that I did with quite a bit of headroom. I want to check the pack voltage. It does have a full charge. I did charge it up again. Wow, that's a really tight connector. 16.5 with a full charge as the total pack voltage. If each cell is 4.1 as a full charge, then it would be 4 in series, 6 parallel, most likely, because there's 24 cells here. So I want to take the cells out and just weigh them to see what it's going to come out with the BMS board and the wires as well. I might subtract a bit of weight from that, and we'll see what the watt hour per gram is. And then we will also compare the weight of the cells to the weight of the entire power station and see what percentage of the entire thing is coming from battery weight alone. This black wire might be a temperature sensor. I'll have to try getting that out. It's glued in place. If I get that out, I might not be able to glue it back in place. I guess I'll just cut it and try not to cut the wire. Yep, there is temperature sensor. Most likely a little high temp sensor. It has the silicone elastic glued on it. Wow, this thing is well made. It's fully equipped. I actually have an opportunity to test that high temperature sensor. See what temperature it shuts down at. We might do that next when we put the cells back in. There we go. Got the cells out of the way. Nothing else underneath. So it looks like the center block is... This is mechanically attached. Let's see. On the other side, you have insulation cardboard. Nice to see. BMS. There's a good look of that. There's a date code on here, and there's some numbers. Charm Fox design, and then the date code is 2022 11/24. So it's exactly 1 year ago is the date code from the time that I'm recording this. It is Celastic coated. No, not Celastic. Conformal coated. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 14 of these. Okay, let's measure the weight of this pack. .25 kilograms. And this thing weighed 2.18 kilograms. So let's see what percentage of its total weight is battery. 1.25 divided by 2.18, 0.57. 57% of its total weight is battery. The only thing that's going to have a higher percentage of its total as battery weight are going to be power banks. Those would have even less packaging. It only has a single board, DC charging and discharging, and there's no AC inverter in those. So you can still have a greater percentage of total weight as just battery or cells. This is the most efficient use of space for 260 watt hours of battery. Let's see what this weighs now. That's the remaining weight. 748 grams, roughly. You add the top half of the case, 933. That's with all the screws as well. Okay, let's put it back together, and then I want to try the temperature sensor, see if there's a shutdown. So most likely this is a high temp sensor. This is the LED board. There's a QR code on there. They have this board stacked vertically along with the other DC output boards and the recharging board to make the best use of space as possible. Something else I've also noticed is that if you were to make a different option for this particular power station to be strictly just a power bank and not have the AC inverter board, that would actually make enough space for another row of 18650 cells. So you can add another 12 cells in addition to the 24 that it already has. The width of the cells in this configuration, there's actually enough space to put a third row of 18650s. 12 here, 12 here. You can actually add a third row, add another 130 watt hours. But it fits. That's enough space for another 130 watt hours. 390 watt hours. 1225 grams minus the plastic brackets and the BMS board and the wires. That would be 0.212 watt hours per gram. Okay, let's put it back together. Looks like the moment I connect this XT30 cable, the display will turn itself on. That might have done a full reset actually. It's blinking. All the controls on the screen. It might need recalibration. Yep, turning it on, same thing. I'm gonna have to pull up this LED light board on this side because this thing is absurdly compact. I don't have enough space to shim the cells back in. There we go, finally. So I was having a bit of issue seating the cells back in place because this capacitor is basically right above the mounting bracket where the screw goes in, and I wasn't able to get that tab, the plastic tab, underneath that capacitor until I had to pull up on the LED light board on this side and then stick it in diagonally and then finally seat it in place. There wasn't going to be enough space to just drop it in. The height of that cap was blocking the plastic tab from sitting in place. Alright, I got the cells back in place. All the screws are secured. Still having the same problem with the state of charge. Let's put a load on this and see if it makes any difference. Something I've noticed is if you turn on the inverter, there is a blue LED light. I actually didn't notice that when I was doing my performance test and review of this thing. Turning the inverter off turns off that blue LED. Interesting. Yep, the fans are on. It says 200 watts. That is the convection oven. It doesn't know the state of charge, but I do believe the BMS should work fine as it would. Okay, I will try the heat gun on this temperature sensor to see if it will shut down. There it is. E01. Is that a shutdown? That took a couple minutes. The wattage dropped to 0. Yes, it is a high temp sensor. 200 watts again. I'm going to start timer and we'll use the heat gun to see how long it takes for it to shut down. There it is. E01. E01. About 20 seconds or so. The two fans back here, they go extra loud when you hear like an over temperature situation occur. The fans do ramp up even more than just running the inverter. Give it another go. You hear that? About 12 seconds the second time. It has a high temperature sensor. What it's set to, I don't know. I had the heat gun close to my hands and it was burning my fingers. I want to say maybe 70°C. Alright, I got the high temp sensor back in place. I did not re-glue it. I'm just using that yellow tape I seat it all the way down between the two cells here, held in place with the tape. That should be fine. The adhesive on the tape is perfectly okay. Now the only thing left to do is figure out how the main control board can know what the state of charge is again. If I keep this plugged in, I'm actually a bit worried it might overcharge, cause a fire hazard situation, because the cells pretty much right now are still at about 95 or 96% full charge. It might have to sit on the charger plugged in for a while until it gets back up to, say, 100%, and then I can unplug it. Once it's back up to 100, I can start discharging it again down to 0, and that could be a full recalibration or a reset, so to speak. So the charge is coming back up. Okay, we're back at 100%, and we have 0 watts going in. So it looks like the main control board has reprogrammed or recalibrated the state of charge, and it should be okay. I have seen other reviews mention there is a high frequency or high pitched noise coming from the inverter when it is on. I do have that as well with the unit that I received here, and I'm going to check the frequency of that high pitched noise using a audio spectrum analyzer app. So right now the inverter is off, and this is the baseline ambient noise. Now I'm going to turn on the inverter and have it idle. You can see right there on the far right hand side at 19,000 hertz. That is the high pitched noise that you hear from the inverter. It's right at the 19K mark. It is that very narrow white line, and everything else in the surrounding area is darker. So any kind of noise or sounds that show up on this audio spectrum will be in bright white. So you see, if I was quiet for a moment, there's a faint white line coming straight down. But check it again this way. It's not very loud, but in a room that is completely silent, you will hear it. Alright, so here's the noise again. With the right now inverter's off. Inverter's on with the blue LED light. Right here where it says 19K, you get that distinct white line coming down, and you do see a little peak right about here. That is the high frequency noise. It's probably the PWM switching, is my guess. High frequency inverters do use high frequency switching. So right there, that's the peak. 19,000. Alright, so I have the convection oven on, 200 watt load. All of this, that's much brighter, all the way through from 50 hertz up to around 9K. That noise is completely from the inverter fan. It is this bright white line here at 19K. That is the high frequency noise coming from the inverter through the high frequency switching. This peak becomes much higher, and that white line is much brighter compared to when having the inverter on idle. You likely won't hear it again because the fan noise is much louder. But if I turn off the load, when the fans stop, you'll see that the white line at 19K, the peak is much lower, and the intensity of the noise comes down. Doesn't seem to be a problem. It is really just a circuit design. It's a circuitry design and the type of PWM switching that is being used, and whatever power MOSFET IGBT is in the inverter circuit. I'm going to check voltage again. It should be close to 16.6. 16.37. Yep. I will let this repeat one more time. Let it charge back up to 100%. And then I will measure again one last time at 100%. And we should see 16.6. That basically confirms everything is working the way it should. Okay, we're at 100%. Alright, I got this thing put back together. All the screws are fully secured and tightened all the way down. The label on the other side, where there's one screw underneath, one half of the label has seen better days. I did have to peel up that label to get that screw in and out. There's not a whole lot for me to fault on this power station. It's well made. To recharge it from a completely dead battery, it is on the slower side. It takes a full 3 hours to get to 100%. That last 1% to 100, it's another 20 to 25 minutes of trickle charging. But to 99%, 2 hours to 40 minutes. But pretty much wraps it up for the Egretech Plume 300.